My fiancé of 10 years cheated on me with my brother's girlfriend. And together they moved into my family home, sold our heirlooms and mocked the life I built for them. But I didn't fall apart. I auctioned the ring, had them arrested and left the country with nothing but my name. The one they could never steal. Grayson Reed, are you cheating on me? The words tumbled out of my mouth before I could catch them. I blamed the champagne, or maybe the 10 years of silence, of waiting, of biting my tongue for the sake of keeping the peace. Either way, once the words left my lips, the atmosphere in the private dining room froze. Forks hovered mid-air. Caleb stopped scrolling on his phone. Even the waitstaff seemed to hold their breath. Across from me, Grayson paused, his whiskey glass halfway to his mouth. His expression didn't change, just that same unreadable calm that had once been reassuring but now felt like a mask. He set the glass down, not too gently but not aggressively either. Just controlled. Measured. Like everything he did. The tension in the room could have sliced through marble. Then he finally spoke. Madeline, today is Caleb's birthday. Can you not bring up something so irrelevant? Irrelevant. I stared at him. That word slammed into my chest like a brick. 10 years. 10 years of loving this man, supporting him, sacrificing sleep plans and pride, labeled irrelevant. I could feel the eyes on me. Our colleagues. Our so-called friends. The young socialites seated further down the table. The assistant who'd worked with me for 5 years. Even the executive from Grayson's company I didn't like much. Morris something, looked uncomfortable. I didn't want to cry. Not here. Not tonight. So I smiled. I picked up the flute of champagne in front of me, tipped it back and drained it in one go. The bubbles stung my throat, but at least they covered the tears in my eyes. I let out a breath, calm and quiet. Then I gave him the smile I'd practiced for years. The kind that said nothing mattered. All right, I said softly. I won't talk about it. The conversation around the table slowly resumed, but the mood had changed. Laughter felt forced. Caleb went back to his phone. Grayson didn't look at me again. I stared at the half-melted wax dripping down the birthday candles on Caleb's custom cake. The one I'd ordered from the best patisserie on the east side. A rich hazelnut praline layered with dark chocolate mousse. Caleb's favorite. He hadn't even acknowledged it. I had known for a long time that Grayson Reed never intended to marry me. He had never said it outright. He didn't need to. It was in the way he always postponed planning. The way he never corrected people who called me his partner instead of fiancé. The way he gave vague responses whenever my parents used to bring up wedding venues before they passed. And still I held on. Like a fool. I had bought the rings myself just to move things along. Just to make it real. I'd told myself he was just busy, just overwhelmed with the company. That love was more than a ceremony. But tonight that word, irrelevant, tore through every excuse I'd made for him. Still, I hadn't expected what came next. Grayson turned back to his drink, then looked up at me with irritation etched across his perfect jawline. We've been engaged for 10 years, he said, his voice low but pointed. I have only been with you. What's the point of making a scene about it? A scene? Can't you be more like Camille? He added. Gentle. Understanding. Camille. Of course. Kept my face blank. I didn't flinch. But inside something twisted painfully. Camille Brooks, 27, fresh-faced, soft-spoken, the kind of woman who never raised her voice even when she was angry. She was the picture of perfect submission. And she'd been living in my house for the past 3 years. A financially struggling student I had sponsored. I first met Camille when she was a sophomore at Hartwell University. Her scholarship didn't cover housing. She had no family nearby. I saw her one rainy evening sitting in the lobby of a campus building, shivering with nowhere to go. She had just found out her roommate had moved out without notice and taken all the kitchenware with her. I offered her a ride home and let her stay in the guest room at Westridge Villa, just for the weekend. That weekend turned into a month. Then 3 years. She was always grateful. She cleaned. Did the laundry. She helped around the house, always saying, "Let me take care of it, Liv. You work so hard." At first I appreciated her. I liked having someone warm around, someone who asked how my day was and genuinely listened. But now I realized, I had handed a wolf my keys and begged her to stay. The double doors to the private room creaked open. Everyone turned. Camille stood there in a soft white dress, a light dusting of flowers still on her sleeves, holding a slightly lopsided cake. Her eyes sparkled with warmth and something else. Maybe pride, maybe guilt. I couldn't tell anymore. "Sorry I'm late," she said sweetly. "I baked this myself." As she entered, Grayson's eyes immediately softened. A flicker of warmth passed through him, a look I hadn't seen directed at me in years. He even snorted lightly, casting a glance at me. As if to say, "See? This is what gentle looks like." Camille came right over to Caleb. "This cake was so hard to make," she said, beaming. "I messed up like 3 times. But it's from the heart, so no complaints, birthday boy." Caleb actually smiled. A rare sight. "I don't want it," he mumbled. But he stood up and took it anyway. Then, without hesitation, he picked up the custom cake I had ordered and dumped it on a side table carelessly. As if it were nothing. I sat there frozen as Camille placed her homemade creation proudly in the center of the table. "Come on, everyone. Make a wish." Camille called brightly. Everyone stood. Even Grayson. No one moved when I brought the cake out earlier. No one lit candles, no one clapped. But now, with just a few words from Camille, they all gathered. Smiling, laughing, pulling out their phones for photos. Camille stood in front of me, unintentionally blocking my view of the table. She looked flustered as she fumbled with the plastic knife. "Wait. I'll cut it. Let me do it." The cake was uneven, lopsided, with a sunken middle. But when Grayson stepped up and said, "You can tell you put a lot of effort into it." "Looks great," Camille lit up like it was Christmas. She turned to Caleb next. "What do you think?" Caleb deliberately took his time, letting her squirm a little. But finally he muttered, "Looks okay. Thanks." Camille beamed. Everyone else jumped in with exaggerated praise, as if the cake had descended from heaven itself. I felt so out of place. So unnecessary. I picked up my bag. I wasn't hungry anymore. As I stood, Caleb noticed and scoffed. "Sis, it's my birthday. Could you maybe not ruin the mood with that sour face?" I blinked at him. "No wonder Grayson doesn't want to marry you. You're always like this. So uptight, so pushy. If you were more like Camille." I didn't hear the rest. My ears started to ring. Grayson didn't stop him. Didn't defend me. Instead he murmured, "Don't compare her to Camille. She'll never learn." The room swirled. My throat burned. Enough. Camille stepped in, laughing awkwardly. "Don't talk to Madeline like that." She dipped her finger into the frosting and playfully smeared it on Caleb's cheek. He retaliated. Grayson let Camille smudge cream across his face like a giddy schoolgirl and smiled. He had never let me do that. Not once. I stood there watching the 3 of them joke and laugh like they were the ones who'd grown up together. Like I was the outsider. Like I didn't belong. I turned and walked out of the room. Just before the door clicked shut behind me, I heard Camille's soft laughter. "Wait, Caleb. You haven't even made a wish yet." Then Caleb's voice, clear as day. "My wish is that you'll spend every birthday from now on with me." Silence. Outside, the wind had picked up. The streetlights flickered. My heels clicked on the pavement like punctuation marks on the end of a decade-long sentence. I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead I whispered, "I get it." Loud and clear. By the time I reached the Westridge Villa, the clock struck midnight. 10 years of love. 10 years of patience. 10 years of hoping for something that was never going to happen. All it took was one night, one word really, for the illusion to shatter. Irrelevant. Let them have each other. As I was done. I didn't sleep much that night. Even after showering, changing into my softest pajamas, and curling under the Egyptian cotton sheets I'd splurged on last fall, I couldn't quiet my mind. The room was silent, but my thoughts were screaming. Every word Grayson had spoken echoed louder than the last. Irrelevant. Be more like Camille. She'll never learn. My stomach churned, not from wine but from rage, white-hot, all-consuming rage that had been bubbling under the surface for years, finally boiling over. It wasn't just about last night. It was about every time Grayson pushed our wedding plans. Every time Caleb called me controlling. Every time Camille acted grateful while inching deeper into everything I had built. The house. The company. My brother. My fiancé. I glanced at the empty side of the bed and felt nauseated. I had built this home for 2. I had carved a life around a man who no longer saw me. Who perhaps never did. Not anymore. Morning sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors as I made my way downstairs. The villa was still. Peaceful. The scent of chamomile and vanilla floated faintly from the diffuser. I padded into the kitchen. That's when I saw it. The pot of porridge still warm on the stove, a sticky note taped to the counter. Good morning, Liv. I made this for your stomach. Set an alarm to wake up and drink it. Red heart, Camille. The handwriting was girlish, bubbly, a little too perfect. A smear of flour dusted the edge of the note, as if for dramatic effect. I stared at it for a long second. Then I picked it up and dropped it into the trash without a word. I didn't want her porridge. Or her guilt. And I was done pretending we were anything but strangers under the same roof. Just as I was finishing my coffee, there was a knock on the bedroom door I had shut behind me earlier. Then a soft voice followed. Liv, are you awake? It was Camille. I had forgotten she still lived here. But only for a moment. I opened the door slowly. She was still wearing the white dress from last night, though the delicate bow at the back was now wrinkled. Her hair was down, slightly messy. But it was the mark on her neck that made my breath catch. A dark, unmistakable bruise just under her collarbone. A hickey. She noticed the direction of my gaze and instinctively brought a hand up to cover it, cheeks flushing. I had a few drinks with Caleb last night, she said, voice syrupy sweet. Grayson dropped us off. It was really late. You were already asleep, so we didn't want to disturb you. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her. She continued nervously now. Is something wrong? I was going to make breakfast. Or, we could talk if you'd like. I let out a short, humorless laugh and stepped aside. No need, I said coldly. You can start packing. Camille froze. What? You heard me. Pack your things. You're moving out. Her lips parted, confusion slowly giving way to tears. I don't understand. Why? I walked past her and sat at my desk, flipping open my laptop. Because I've decided I no longer want to be anyone's stepping stone. But I've been helping around the house, and last night I even made porridge for you. You also made your way into my brother's life. Into Grayson's life. And mine. Piece by piece, you chipped your way in until you forgot who gave you everything you have now. Camille stepped into the room, hands clasped tightly. Liv, I didn't mean to. I took you in when you couldn't afford a roof. When you said your roommates were judging you for being from a small town. When you cried that they mocked your accent. Her eyes filled again. I was terrified. You helped me. You believed in me. And now I don't, I snapped. Silence. Then from behind me a sharp voice roared. What the hell is wrong with you? Caleb stood in the hallway, shirtless, eyes bloodshot from sleep, or maybe a hangover. His fists were clenched. His expression thunderous. You're kicking Camille out? Seriously? Get dressed, I said sharply. Then you can go with her. He blinked. You're throwing me out too? You care about her so much, I said standing slowly. Then go play house with her somewhere else. Camille panicked. No, Caleb, it's fine. I have some savings. I'll move out today. Don't fight with Madeline over me. But Caleb was already worked up. No. This is ridiculous. You're acting like a psycho. Just because Grayson won't marry you doesn't mean you can treat Camille like trash. My hand twitched. He didn't stop. You've always been this way, Maddie. Controlling. No wonder Grayson doesn't want to put a ring on it. Who would? I slapped him. Hard. The sound cracked through the villa like thunder. He staggered back, stunned, holding his cheek. You hit me. Yes, I said flatly. And if you ever speak to me like that again, I'll do worse. He stared at me, fury rising in his bloodshot eyes. But I could see it, he didn't dare raise a hand back. Not because he didn't want to. Because he knew he wouldn't win. Go, I said. I'm your brother, he barked. You're supposed to take care of me. You're 24, not 4, I snapped. Grow up. I've fed you, clothed you, paid for your ridiculous college hobbies and your ridiculous birthday parties. And what did I get in return? Disrespect. Betrayal. His eyes narrowed. This is because of Grayson. You're upset and taking it out on us. No, I said. This is because I finally opened my damn eyes. Camille sniffled behind him. Liv, please. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't even look at her. Save the act for someone else. I turned and walked into my room, slamming the door behind me. I heard Caleb shouting down the hall. You think I need you? That I can't survive without your money? You're not God, Madeline. You're just a bitter, washed-up control freak. Then quieter, his voice cracking, retreating. Let's go, Camille. She's not worth it. The front door slammed minutes later. I sat in silence for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and began drafting the international relocation strategy for my company. There were a few major projects left to wrap up. Maybe 2 weeks of work at most. After that, I'd be gone forever. By the end of the day, the house felt like it could breathe again. Camille's soft shoes were no longer by the door. Caleb's ridiculous gaming chair was gone from the guest room. The tension that had lived in the walls for the past few months, unspoken but ever-present, finally lifted. My assistant called to confirm the sale listing on Westridge Villa. I told him to expedite it. I also handed him a short list. My engagement ring. A few luxury watches I had bought for Caleb over the years. The villa's art collection. And my designer wardrobe pared down to essentials. Are you sure? He asked. I nodded. There's nothing here worth keeping anymore. That night, as I poured myself a glass of wine and curled up on the couch, I felt the strangest sensation. Relief. Not pain. Not guilt. Not heartbreak. Just space. The kind that forms when you finally clear the wreckage. My phone buzzed with a message from Grayson. Grayson, I heard what happened. Don't take it out on Camille. She's still young. I stared at the message. Then deleted it. He had no idea. None of them did. But they would. Very soon. Because I was done being the woman who waited. I was ready to be the woman who left. 3 days. That's how long it took Grayson Reed to show up at my office. 3 days since I kicked Camille out. 3 days since Caleb stormed out with her, shouting that he didn't need me. 3 days of peace that I'd never known I needed so badly. In those 72 hours, I had sold off half the items in Westridge Villa, filed relocation paperwork with my legal team, and quietly approved the merger that would take my company abroad. I hadn't taken a single call from Grayson. But clearly he hadn't taken the hint. Liv, my assistant Miles said warily, poking his head into my office, Grayson Reed is here. I didn't even look up from the quarterly report I was reviewing. Tell him I'm not available. I did. Twice. And Miles sighed. He's in the lobby. Shouting. People are staring. Of course he was. Grayson always did love a good scene when things didn't go his way. I closed the file folder, leaned back in my chair and smoothed my blazer. Let him in, I said coolly. But give me 30 seconds alone with him. Then I want the entire executive floor cleared until further notice. Miles nodded once and disappeared. Seconds later, the door burst open. Grayson stormed in like he owned the place. Which technically he didn't. But for a long time I had let him act like he did. Really, Madeline? He snapped, slamming the door behind him. What the hell did you say to Camille? I didn't answer. He looked disheveled. His black suit was wrinkled around the collar, the stubble on his jaw darker than usual. The usual calm, polished Grayson was gone. She hasn't shown up to work in 3 days, he spat. She's not answering her phone. She's missing meetings. What did you do? I arched a brow and folded my arms. So now I control her attendance at Reed Enterprises? Cut the sarcasm, he growled. You think I don't know how your mind works? She told me you kicked her out. That you humiliated her. I let out a short laugh. Humiliated? I told her to pack. I didn't throw her out on the street. She was crying, he said. She's always crying, I replied. It's what she does best. Grayson's eyes narrowed. You're jealous. That stopped me cold. I stood slowly, deliberately. Come again. You couldn't stand how close we've gotten, he said, stepping toward my desk. You saw how happy she makes me, how gentle, how sweet, and you snapped. I gave him a long, hard look. Are you seriously standing in my office right now, telling me you're falling for the girl I took in like a stray cat? His jaw clenched. Don't twist this. I walked around my desk, heels clicking on the marble floor until we were face to face. You want to talk about twisted? Fine, I said calmly. Let's talk about the mark on Camille's neck the night of Caleb's birthday. Was that you? His shoulders stiffened. For the first time since walking in, he faltered. Since you already figured it out, he muttered, there's no point in hiding it. I felt something inside me go completely, irrevocably cold. She had too much to drink. Ryan passed out in the car. He got excited. I lost control, he said, shrugging. But I'm telling you, it didn't mean anything. I blinked. You're seriously standing here confessing to cheating and acting like it's a scheduling error? You're still the one I want to marry, he said flatly. You'll be Mrs. Reed. Not her. I stared at him, stunned. Then I laughed. Not softly. Not bitterly. A real, open laugh that made him visibly uncomfortable. Grayson Reed, I said, shaking my head. You're disgusting. His face darkened. You don't have to say it like that, he snapped. Be honest, when I was out of town you never looked at anyone else? No, I said without hesitation. Because I actually loved you. He went quiet. I'll admit it, he said after a beat. I was really into you a few years ago. But things fade. I closed my eyes. I could still remember the early days, when Grayson stayed up with me during all-night business proposals. When he kissed my forehead after investor meetings. When he held me and said, "No matter what happens, I'm here." That was the version of him I had loved. But this man? This version? He wasn't worth even my contempt. You're right, I said finally. Things have faded. Including my patience. I turned back to my desk, picked up the envelope that had been sitting in the drawer for 2 months and handed it to him. What's this? The engagement ring. Sell it. Melt it. Shove it in a drawer. I don't care. He blinked. Wait. I'm breaking off the engagement, Grayson, I said. This time for real. He scoffed, stepping forward. Are you playing hard to get now? Madeline, if you think this is going to make me chase you. Don't flatter yourself, I said coolly. This isn't a game. You cheated. Let my own brother treat me like garbage. And you know what? I let it happen. For 10 years I stood by and waited for you to choose me. I stepped closer until we were only inches apart. I'm choosing myself now. Grayson's face hardened. 10 years, Madeline. Don't forget that. I won't, I said, voice like ice. I'll remember every second, so I never make the same mistake again. He stood there for a long moment, stunned. Then finally he reached into his pocket, pulled out a key and set it on my desk. It was the spare to Westridge Villa. You'll regret this, he said quietly. Only thing I regret, I said, is not walking away sooner. He left without another word. That afternoon the call came from Mr. Lang at the Hart family manor. Miss Madeline, he said breathlessly. You need to come right away. It's Caleb. He's going to ruin the house. My stomach dropped. What happened? He brought Camille here. They've been acting indecent. And today they were in the Ancestral hall. I was already grabbing my car keys. I'm on my way. By the time I arrived, the housekeeper was near tears. They were in the Ancestral hall, ma'am. Laughing. Touching. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even respond. I made a beeline for the heart of the estate, our parents' memorial room. The door was open. Voices carried from inside. I'm not apologizing to some dusty plaques, Caleb was saying. It's not like they're alive. Caleb. I shouted. He froze mid-argument, his face flushing when he saw me. The room was intact, but the tension was unbearable. Camille stood to the side, looking small and pitiful, hands wringing her skirt. Liv, please, we didn't mean any disrespect. I ignored her and turned to Caleb. This estate, I said, was once sold just to save our company. I bought it back. Restored every single heirloom. And this is how you honor it. Caleb looked guilty for a second. Then defiant. You're being dramatic. It's not like we were. Don't, I said sharply. Don't say another word. Camille stepped in again. It was my fault. Please don't be angry at Caleb. Mr. Lang, I said, turning to the housekeeper. Call the police. That got their attention. Caleb's eyes went wide. You're calling the cops? Over this? You sold family heirlooms without permission. That's theft. It's just some stuff. It's our history, I said. And you threw it away. Just like you did me. When the police arrived, Caleb exploded again. You can't do this. I'm your brother. I looked him in the eye. Not anymore. His voice broke. What are you saying? I'm saying you're no longer part of this family. That night as they were escorted away, I stayed behind. Alone. I lit incense at my parents' memorial and knelt. Mom. Dad, I whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long. But I finally let them go. I stayed there until the candles burned down. Then I stood. And I didn't look back. The call came just as I was signing the final paperwork to close Westridge Villa. I'd been expecting silence after the storm. But instead, my phone buzzed with Mr. Lang's name flashing across the screen. My estate manager at Hart Family Manor. A man who never called unless something was deeply wrong. I answered immediately. Mr. Lang. Miss Madeline, he said, his voice frantic. You need to come home. It's Caleb. I felt my blood run cold. What happened? He hesitated. He and that young woman, Camille, they've moved into the manor. They've been living here. Without permission. And this morning. His voice dropped lower. I caught them being intimate. In the ancestral hall. Silence. The room around me disappeared into a dull hum. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to do, he added quickly. I asked them to leave. Caleb said you gave him permission. I knew it wasn't true. But I'm on my way, I said. Do not let them leave. Lock the gates. The drive back to Hart Family Manor was a blur of trees and roads I'd driven thousands of times. But this time, everything looked foreign. Unforgiving. The ancestral hall wasn't just a room. It was a sacred space. A tribute to generations of hearts. My parents' ashes rested in that hall. Their photos. Their letters. The family crest hand-carved into the cedar altar wall. No one was ever permitted to cross that threshold lightly. And now the brother I raised had violated it like it meant nothing. When I arrived, the staff looked shaken. Mr. Lang met me at the front steps. They're still inside, he said softly, eyes full of shame. They've locked themselves in the hall. But I heard shouting, screaming, and laughter. I didn't respond. I pushed the door open and strode through the main foyer. Memories of our childhood flashed in every creak of the floorboards. Caleb chasing me down the hallway, our mother scolding us for muddy shoes, our father calling out chess moves from the library. That boy was gone. I was about to meet the man he'd become. The ancestral hall door was slightly ajar. I didn't knock. I pushed it open with one hard shove. Inside, Camille sat perched on the edge of the family altar table, her legs dangling like she was on a picnic bench. Her hair was tousled. Her blouse slightly open. Caleb stood behind her, shirt unbuttoned, drink in hand, laughing at something she'd said. They both froze when I entered. The room smelled of alcohol. The incense I had carefully stored for Memorial Days had been lit, wrongly. Burned halfway down. Ashes scattered like careless crumbs across the marble floor. The urns of my parents' remains stood solemnly on either side of Camille's swinging legs. I didn't speak. Not yet. I walked to the center of the room and looked Caleb directly in the eye. What? I said, voice sharp and cold. Do you think you're doing? Camille slid off the table immediately, clutching her chest, her expression suddenly one of fragile innocence. Madeline, I didn't know this was sacred space. Caleb said it was okay. Don't speak, I snapped without looking at her. Caleb straightened. You don't get to walk in here and act like this is your temple. This is our house too. I turned to him slowly. You broke in, I said. You moved in without permission. You used my name. Lied to Mr. Lang. And now you've brought her into the one room that was never yours to touch. It's just a room, he said. Stop being dramatic. My hands clenched. Camille stepped forward, her voice honeyed. Please don't be angry. I didn't mean to upset you. Caleb and we've just been going through a lot. We didn't have anywhere else to go. Grayson, he's ignoring both of us now. We were desperate. I laughed. A cold, bitter sound. You were desperate? And you chose this room? With the urns of my parents watching? Caleb threw his glass into the fireplace. Chattered. Stop acting like you're so perfect, he screamed. You always think you're better than everyone. You're not a saint, Madeline. No, I said quietly. But I was your sister. That stopped him. I took a slow step forward. Then another. Until I stood inches from him. I gave you everything, I whispered. I fed you. I raised you. I sold my jewelry to pay your college tuition. I worked 20-hour days to save this house so you'd have a roof over your head. I held your hand the day Mom died, and I gave up job offers to stay close to you. Tears burned at the back of my throat. But I didn't let them fall. And this is how you repay me? By desecrating the one thing I had left of them. He blinked rapidly. His bravado cracked just for a second. I didn't mean. You meant every bit of it, I said. I turned to Mr. Lang, who had silently entered behind me. Call the police. Camille gasped. Wait, what? What for? I didn't even look at her. Search the East Storage Wing. They've been selling our heirlooms on online auction sites. I want a list of everything missing. Caleb's voice rose in disbelief. You're calling the cops? Yes. Madeline, you can't be serious. I turned to him. My voice was steady. Final. From this moment forward, I said, you are no longer part of the Hart family. Not legally. Not emotionally. Not even in memory. His mouth opened then closed. You don't mean that. I do. When the police arrived, Caleb resisted. Camille cried. They both shouted. The officers searched the manor and recovered 2 forged receipts, an antique silver spoon set missing from the dining display, and my mother's sapphire brooch in Camille's travel bag. I watched from the steps as they were handcuffed. Caleb screamed my name as he was shoved into the squad car. Madeline. Please. Don't do this. Please, I didn't think. I said nothing. I walked back inside. And closed the door. That night the manor was quiet again. I lit incense, properly this time, in the ancestral hall and swept the floor myself. I wiped down the marble base of the urns and whispered apologies to my parents. I let him stay too long, I said. But I won't let him haunt us anymore. For the first time in years the silence felt clean. 3 days later I was preparing for my flight. My bags were packed. My team was briefed. The Hart family company was now under overseas relocation, and I'd appointed Miles to oversee what remained in my absence. I was set to leave everything behind. Everything, except for the memory of what I gave away in the name of love. At the airport, just as I stepped out of the car, a figure dashed toward me. It was Camille. She looked a mess. Hair unwashed. Eyes swollen. She tripped over her heels as she ran toward me. Madeline, she sobbed. Please, wait, please. I stopped, but only because security was starting to eye her suspiciously. She fell to her knees at the curb, grabbing my wrist. I don't have anyone left, she whispered. Grayson blocked me. Caleb's in a holding cell and blames me for everything. I have nowhere to go. I have no money. No family. Just you. I looked down at her. She clung to my coat like a child begging for a second chance. I know I was wrong, she cried. I didn't mean to hurt you. I wanted what you had. You had love. Power. A name. I just wanted to feel important. I pulled my wrist from her grip. I gave you a home, I said. You wanted the whole house. I was stupid, she said. Please. Let me come with you. I'll be your assistant. Your dog. Anything. I tilted my head. No, I said simply. She blinked. No. You made your choices, I said. You picked the man. The betrayal. The spotlight. You burned bridges and thought I'd come back to walk you across the ashes. She shook her head. Please. I'm not a rescue boat, I said. I'm the one that got away. Then I turned, handed my passport to the attendant and walked into the terminal. I didn't look back. Not even when she screamed my name. That night, from my seat in the clouds, I finally exhaled. Caleb was gone. Camille was gone. Grayson was behind me. All I had left was me. And that was more than enough. The ballroom was soaked in gold. From the cascading chandeliers to the polished marble floors, everything gleamed as though dipped in honey. Waiters moved through the space with silent precision, trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres gliding past silk gowns and polished shoes. Cameras flashed softly. Laughs echoed in curated elegance. At the far end of the room, on a velvet-draped pedestal, sat the item that had brought most of them here. My engagement ring. Grayson had once told me it took him 8 months of secret investments to afford it. A flawless solitaire diamond framed by 2 pear-shaped sapphires. My birthstone, on a platinum band. He'd hidden it under the Christmas tree, inside a hollowed-out copy of Pride and Prejudice. I used to think that was romantic. Now I saw it for what it truly was. A promise never meant to be kept, wrapped in fiction. I stood off to the side of the auction hall, in a burgundy silk gown that fit me like armor. Miles was at my side reviewing the guest list on his tablet. The ring goes up 5th, he said. The room's full of press. All expecting fireworks. They'll get them, I said without looking up. Do you want to sit down? I glanced toward the row of VIP seats. And that's when I saw them. Grayson and Camille. They walked in like they owned the night. He wore a tailored navy suit, jaw tight, eyes scanning the room with that same old entitled calm. She was a vision of calculated remorse, soft makeup, fluttering lashes, and a silver dress that hugged her curves with strategic elegance. The perfect image of the misunderstood woman. People turned. Phones lifted. Whispers spread like wildfire. I watched them walk straight to the front row and sit right next to my reserved seat. Of course. When I finally took my place beside them, Camille offered a meek smile. Hi, Maddie, she whispered. I didn't look at her. Grayson leaned in, voice low. Selling the ring? Really? I kept my gaze forward. I thought you two liked public spectacles. His hand curled into a fist on his lap. The auctioneer took the stage. After the 4th item, a vintage Aston Martin hood ornament, my ring was brought out in a glass case. A hush fell over the room. The spotlight found me. And now a truly rare piece, the auctioneer announced. An engagement ring custom designed by Reed Jewelers. Platinum with conflict-free diamond and sapphires. The seller, who wishes to remain anonymous, though many of you may know her story, has requested the proceeds be donated to the Women's Independence Foundation. A round of respectful applause. My chest rose and fell with slow, deliberate breaths. Bidding starts at 10,000. 20, someone called. 30. 35. The numbers climbed steadily. Grayson was silent beside me. Watching. Fuming. At 60,000, a tall brunette in the second row raised her paddle again. 70, she said. 80, Grayson snapped, suddenly lifting a paddle one of the ushers had placed in front of him earlier. I turned to him slowly. You're bidding on the ring you threw away? He didn't look at me. I'm not letting anyone else wear it. Camille flinched. Too late for that, I murmured. 85. 90. 100. The crowd gasped. People leaned forward in their seats. The auctioneer was glowing. 100,000. Do I hear 110? Grayson raised his paddle again. 120. The brunette raised her hand, smirking. 130. Grayson slammed his paddle down on the armrest. 150. The brunette laughed softly. 170. 200, he snapped. Everyone turned. Cameras clicked. A reporter whispered something into her recorder. Camille looked like she wanted to disappear into her seat. I stayed perfectly still. Just then the double doors slammed open. Don't let him have it. Every head turned. He was a mess. Wrinkled jacket. Wild eyes. Sweat on his brow. Grayson doesn't deserve that ring, he shouted, stumbling into the room. He cheated on her. With my girlfriend. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The auctioneer froze. Grayson stood up fast. Security. Let him speak, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. The room went dead silent. Caleb pointed at Camille. She said she loved me. He turned to Grayson. And you told me you'd never touch her. Camille covered her face. Grayson looked around at the crowd. This is ridiculous. He's drunk. Caleb shoved him. Don't you dare gaslight me again. A camera flash exploded. Stop. Camille cried. But it was too late. Grayson shoved Caleb back. Caleb swung. The two of them crashed into the row of chairs, knocking over drinks, tripping over programs. A fist hit someone's cheek. A glass shattered. And just like that, the Heartread scandal exploded into real time. Security swarmed them. People were recording from every angle. The auctioneer tried to resume the bidding, but no one was listening anymore. This wasn't just gossip now. It was war. I stood and walked away before they could touch me with their chaos. Outside the ballroom, under the cool breath of midnight air, I took my phone from my clutch. It was already blowing up. Miles texted. It's trending in 7 countries. Camille was fired. Grayson's board is in emergency meeting. Caleb's mugshot is everywhere. I slid the phone back into my bag. My job was done. 2 days later, the ring sold privately to a buyer in Geneva. A woman who said she admired what it stood for. A promise made, broken, and reclaimed. She asked me to sign the inside of the case. I did. To the woman who never needed a ring to feel complete. Camille tried calling me 5 times. I blocked her. Caleb's lawyer reached out. I ignored him. Grayson sent one final text. We were good once, weren't we? I didn't reply. I didn't need closure. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need love from the people who offered it with knives in their hands. What I needed was silence. And the chance to build a life where no one ever called me too much again. I didn't think I'd ever return to the international departures wing of Howell Airport with a suitcase in hand and no one waving goodbye. But maybe that was the point. This time I wasn't leaving something behind, I was choosing not to take it with me. The morning air was crisp, too bright for the late-night headlines still swirling across news feeds. Camille Brooks, fired from Reed Enterprises. Caleb Hart, booked and released on charges of trespassing and theft. Grayson Reed, silent, his once loyal board now ice-cold and fractured. I didn't care. Not anymore. I had finalized the documents transferring my company's headquarters to Zurich. Westridge Villa was sold to a conservation foundation. Hart Family Manor would remain in Mr. Lang's care, preserved but never again lived in. And the ring? Gone. The girl who wore it had vanished too. My car turned down the final road leading to the airport's private terminal. The gate was open. Security waved us forward. And then from nowhere, Camille appeared. She sprinted from the edge of the terminal drop-off zone in 4-inch heels, her face pale, her hair a mess of hurried curls. She ran directly into the lane and slammed her hands against the hood of my car. The brakes screeched. My driver cursed under his breath. What the hell? I leaned forward slowly, peering through the windshield. It was her. Camille Brooks. Once the girl I fed, sheltered, protected. Now the woman who sat across from my fiancé with a hickey on her neck and my brother's trust in her mouth. I opened the door. She immediately collapsed to her knees beside the car, grabbing my hand. Please, she sobbed. Don't go. Don't leave me here. Stand up, I said, voice flat. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. I can't. I don't have anywhere else to go. Her silver clutch fell open. No passport. No boarding pass. Just a cracked phone and a hotel keycard. I stepped out, shutting the door behind me. The cool breeze hit my skin. My coat fluttered behind me. I have a flight in 20 minutes. Take me with you, she begged, still kneeling. I'll carry your bags. I'll work for free. I'll stay out of your way, just let me come with you. I crouched slowly to her level but didn't touch her. You had my house, I said softly. You had my brother's heart. You had the man I waited for 10 years to marry. I never meant. You meant all of it, I cut her off. You took and you smiled through it all like you deserved it. I didn't think it would go this far, she whispered. You never do, I replied. She clutched the hem of my coat. Grayson won't speak to me. Caleb blames me for everything. I'm being harassed online. The media is calling me a social climber. They say I used you. They're right, I said calmly. You did. She looked up at me, stunned. And for once she didn't pretend to be innocent. She didn't bat her lashes or curl into herself like a fragile fawn. She simply wept. I ruined everything. I didn't deny it. Behind us, a terminal agent approached hesitantly. Miss Hart. Final boarding call. The tarmac team is ready. I nodded. Then looked back at Camille. She was still on her knees. A crowd had started to form. People taking pictures, murmuring. But I didn't care. This wasn't a scandal anymore. It was a requiem. I told you once, I said, that I saw myself in you. She blinked at me, red-rimmed eyes wide. But I was wrong, I continued. I was what you pretended to be. Loyal. Earnest. Kind. You weren't like me. You were what I used to save. She whimpered, please. I'm not your savior anymore. Her hand slid from my coat. I turned. She cried out behind me, don't leave me alone. I paused, my back to her, and whispered without looking over my shoulder, alone is how you made me feel for 10 years. Then I walked away. Inside the terminal, the glass walls blurred with morning light. My shoes tapped softly across the tile. The jet waited beyond the window. I didn't look back. Not when security gently led Camille away. Not when I heard her cries echo down the corridor. Not when the sun finally pierced through the clouds and landed on my skin like a quiet benediction. 30 minutes later the plane lifted off. And with it, so did the weight of every promise I'd ever kept for the wrong people. Grayson. Camille. All gone. All behind me. At cruising altitude, the attendant offered me a glass of champagne. I declined. Instead, I pulled out a pen and notebook and wrote. Closure isn't always quiet. Sometimes it screams your name while you board the flight anyway. The first photo I saw of him after I left was grainy. A blurry phone capture posted to a gossip site under the headline. From privilege to pity. Caleb Hart spotted outside budget motel after family fallout. His once crisp suits were gone. In their place, wrinkled khakis, a hoodie with a torn sleeve, and the unmistakable posture of someone too proud to beg, but too broken to stand tall. The man who once threw parties in my house without asking was now seen fighting with a parking meter for spitting out his last dollar. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt done. 2 weeks had passed since I boarded that plane. Zurich had been colder than expected. Autumn in the Alps came with an elegant bite, but the sharp chill suited me. The international division of Hart and Hale had exceeded projections, and for the first time in years, I could walk into meetings without someone introducing me as Grayson Reed's fiancée or Caleb Hart's sister. Here I was just Madeline. Investor. Visionary. No qualifiers. No shadows. Only me. But back home the headlines kept rolling in. Reed Enterprises shaken by internal audit. Grayson Reed's private expenses under fire. Camille Brooks fired. Source says she was toxic and manipulative at work. Caleb Hart evicted from family manor. Legal battle brews over stolen heirlooms. Mr. Lang kept me updated. He'd personally overseen the resealing of Hart family manor. Every last item recovered had been catalogued and restored. The ancestral hall. Blocked. Silenced. Caleb wasn't allowed near it now. And the staff, most of whom had helped raise us, refused to let him back in. They'd watched him grow from boy to man. And now they watched him fall. It started slowly. The eviction hit first. He'd returned to the manor the day after Camille's airport breakdown, trying to plead with Lang to let him stay. Lang didn't budge. You are no longer recognized as heir to this house, he had said calmly. Madeline's orders. Caleb had threatened to call the police. Lang had calmly replied, I already did. That night Caleb slept in his car. 3 days later the car was towed. He spent the next few nights couch hopping between old friends, until those doors shut too. Grayson, already under pressure from his own board, made a public statement. While I deeply regret the events of recent weeks, I want to make it clear that I have no further ties to either Caleb Hart or Camille Brooks. Personal matters should never interfere with professional integrity. Precise. Gutting. Grayson had learned that trick from me. Camille, predictably, tried to spin the narrative in the press, crying during an interview, claiming Caleb had misled her and promised marriage. She showed doctored screenshots of text messages that painted her as a victim. But the public had seen enough of her face in headlines to grow tired. The comments turned fast. A manipulator trying to save herself. You seduced your mentor's fiancée and her brother. You deserve obscurity. You burned the house that sheltered you. She disappeared after that. Even I didn't know where she went. And I didn't care. Caleb, though, he didn't vanish. He lingered. And that's what made his downfall hurt to watch. He called Mr. Lang. Repeatedly. He emailed Miles begging him to reason with me. He posted Instagram stories with vague captions like, people will realize what they lost too late, and family doesn't turn its back on you, unless it was never family. But the final straw came 2 months later when he called me. I saw his name flash across the screen while I was sipping espresso in a glass office overlooking Lake Zurich. I stared at the phone for a long time. Then answered. Silence. Then, pads. I said nothing. I messed up. Still nothing. I should have never let her into that house. I should have. God, I don't even know what I should have done differently. Everything maybe. My fingers rested on the edge of the table. I know I hurt you, he said. And I'm not asking for a place to stay or money or even forgiveness. I miss you. I miss my sister. He choked on the last word. I still remember how you'd pack my lunch for school and put a dumb smiley face on the napkin. I remember you standing up to Dad when he yelled at me. I remember you giving me the last ticket to Mom's recital when you'd been dying to go. You were always better. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. You're still my sister, he whispered. Even if I'm nothing now. I raised the phone slowly, just enough to let my lips touch the receiver. And I said, no, I'm not your sister. Not anymore. I didn't block his number. I didn't need to. Some silences are louder than rage. Mine? It echoed. Weeks later, Miles handed me a newspaper. The front page article featured a photo of Caleb in a city shelter. He had a beard now. Looked thinner. The headline read, "Once a Heart, the Rise and Ruin of a Family's Son." I read it over a cappuccino, then folded it neatly and slid it into the trash. He wasn't a heart anymore. Not mine anyway. And for the first time since my parents' funeral, I didn't feel like I was carrying someone else's sins. I had finally laid them down. And I walked away lighter. Zurich in spring smelled nothing like Howell. There were no jasmine vines curling along rusted garden fences. No sound of sprinklers sputtering across the old tennis court at Westridge Villa. No humid buzz of cicadas as the sky pinked into dusk. Instead, there were tulips here. Long rows of them outside my new home. A garden that bloomed beneath the slope of a glass-walled guesthouse I'd designed myself. Morning came with soft bells from the church down the hill and the clinking of spoons on porcelain in the cafe across the street. Peace was quieter than I expected. But then again, I had been screaming inside for years. I spent my mornings walking barefoot across the cool stone tiles of the kitchen, grinding my own coffee beans. I signed contracts for Hart and Hale's European expansion while perched on the balcony, wrapped in linen and silence. I used to chase approval. Now I sign my own paychecks. The world back home continued to burn in its own way. Grayson was officially ousted from Reed Enterprises 3 weeks after their internal audit. Financial misconduct. Conflicts of interest. Tampered procurement records, most tied to Camille's influence. He released a public statement. I lost more than a company. I lost the woman who built it beside me. Touching. Too late. Camille was last seen boarding a flight to the Philippines under a fake name. A video surfaced weeks later of her arguing with airport staff about her expired visa. No one rushed to defend her. Not even the tabloids. As for Caleb, he was silent now. Truly silent. His last online post was a black square captioned, "Some doors close forever." Yes, they do. People asked why I never gave interviews. Why I never clapped back online or made some grand televised speech. I had every chance to reclaim the spotlight. But I didn't want it. I wasn't interested in telling the world what they lost. I was too busy becoming what I'd nearly forgotten I could be. One evening I hosted a dinner on the terrace. Just a handful of people I'd met here. No one who cared about my surname. A ceramicist. A pianist. A woman who ran a community shelter for single mothers. Miles, of course, flew in from New York. He brought Swiss chocolate and his usual sarcasm. "I still think you should have leaked Grayson's ugly crying voicemail," he said, sipping wine. I smirked. That would have required me to listen to it. He laughed. Cold. "I love it." The others toasted to that. After the guests left, I stayed on the terrace. Alone. The mountains stood like patient giants in the distance. The lake shimmered under moonlight. And I thought back, not to the betrayals or the scandals, but to a younger version of me. The girl who waited 10 years for a man to see her. The woman who walked away from the only family she had. The soul who thought she had to be small to be loved. I whispered something to her, to that version of myself. "Thank you for surviving. Now let me live." In my bedroom, I passed the vanity where the ring once sat. It was bare now. No ring. No framed photos of me and Grayson. No relics of the past. Just perfume. Lip balm. And a new necklace I'd bought with my first Zurich bonus. A golden key. It didn't open anything. It just reminded me that I was free. The next morning a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a single page handwritten in Caleb's messy script. Asterisk, "I know you won't forgive me. I don't expect you to. But I wanted to thank you. For raising me. For loving me even when I didn't deserve it. You were always more than I gave you credit for. You were never the shadow. You were the sun. I hope you keep shining. Sis. I didn't cry. But I did sit with it for a while. Then folded it once, neatly, and placed it between the pages of Pride and Prejudice. A story about women who walk away from the wrong men. How fitting. I built a life. I traveled to Lisbon, to Vienna, to a quiet village in Norway where I slept under the northern lights. I planted wildflowers in my backyard, and they bloomed in colors I'd never seen before. I danced with strangers. I ate alone in candlelit cafes and didn't feel lonely. I stopped waiting to be loved the way I gave love. And started loving myself instead. They say closure is a myth. Maybe. But what I found was something better. Not closure. Clarity. I no longer needed to explain why I left. I no longer needed to be understood. They could write whatever they wanted in their chapters. I was writing my own epilogue. And in it there was no wedding. No apology tour. No man running through the rain to stop me at the gate. Just a woman. Standing tall. Unbothered. And finally, free. The end.